What is going on, guys? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. Guys, I'm happy to have you here, as always. Appreciate you tuning in, hearing me flap my gums a little bit about whatever's on my mind this week's, which happens to be what I would tell people about owning a business. Long story short, I was getting my hair cut recently, and the girl who cuts my hair, just like any good hairstylist was, trying to just make conversation and chat about life, work, whatever's going on while the haircut's happening. And one of the questions she asked me, because she knows what I do for a living and whatnot, she said, what would you tell people it's like owning a business? And it made me think for a second. And I had three things that came to mind. The first would be I would tell them that it's overrated and overglorified. The second, I would say it's underappreciated. And the third would be that I wouldn't trade it for anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive right into this, and I'm going to give a little bit of context on those three things that came to mind. I'm going to push through it the best I can because the overrated part is kicking in today because I've had a long day. I'm very tired, and I will do my best to string some words together that hopefully provide a little bit of value, maybe a little bit of entertainment for you. Let's get started. All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said, today I want to be giving you a little bit of insight on what I would tell people that it's like to own a business. As I mentioned before the intro started playing, I was getting my hair cut recently, and the girl who cuts my hair was making conversation about, what would you tell people it's like to own a business? And honestly, I've never really been asked that question too much, right? Because most people just assume they know what it's like to own a business and to run an organization. And although you don't yet have a large, by most contexts or by most definitions, we don't have a large business yet as far as people and locations and whatnot, but we're working on it. We do still have the responsibility of about 12 to 14 lives and their financial well-being, as well as the hundreds of properties that we take on and are responsible for completing projects at their properties each year, as well as a lot of dollars that flow in and out of this organization that we are, again, responsible for stewarding those dollars to the best of our abilities. And when I started to kind of think about those things, she asked me the question of what I would tell people it's like to own a business, the first thing that came to mind is I said, well, I would tell people that it's overrated and overglorified. What do I mean by that? Right? If you don't live under a rock and you are in any sort of, social, whether it's, online or in real life, circles of business, management, leadership, development, anything like that, we've all probably seen at one time or another people talking about how great it is to own a business, how wonderful it must be, all the freedom you have, the money you make, the decisions you get to make. Nobody tells you what to do, yada, 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 yada. We've all heard it, right? And the reality is, although some of those things can be true, right? Like you can make a lot of money owning a business. You can have a lot of freedom owning a business. Actually, those are about the only two true possibilities out of everything I just said. All the rest of it's a reality as well, right? So when you think about that, you don't have anybody telling you what to do. You're right. You don't have a boss that you report to. You typically, if you have any size of a business, you typically have hundreds of bosses you report to. Those bosses come in the form of your clients because every client wants a little bit different of a project. They want communicated with a little bit differently. They want different specs or different times to work, different schedules to follow, different expectations to meet, different desired outcomes of the project, whatever it might be. It would be like having a different manager that you go to work for every single day. And so you have a lot of different bosses you have to answer to. You have your team, right? All the people who work in your organization. You have to answer to them. One of the things that I was taught about leadership early on is the best leaders are servant leaders. And what does that mean, right? If we go from a religious or a faith-based standpoint, you look at someone like Jesus, who he was known for being a servant to those that he led. known for even, going to the extent of washing feet, at a gathering as the main key person who was there. He was the servant to wash the feet. So when you're leading a company and an organization, a lot of people over glorify it and think that you build this company to serve you, when in fact, if you do it right and with the right motives, you're building the company to serve the people, right? That doesn't mean that you can't have the opportunity, like I said, to make a good living financially, to have some freedoms, that you maybe aren't limited to 2 weeks of PTO per year or whatever it is. But it all comes with the cost and with the investment and with the sacrifice of serving the people that you signed up to serve, whether it's in your company or outside of your company. In addition to that, you also have to serve and answer to the people of the general public who look at you as the leader of that organization, the business owner. You have an expectation to meet when you show up to places, whether you're showing up from a professional standpoint or you're in a social and personal standpoint. People who still know you, they hold you to a different standard. They hold you to a different level of expectations that you're required to meet. And if you don't, whether they tell you or not, you maybe let them down. You might make them think, man, I thought this guy or this girl kind of had it together. Not saying that you have to be perfect, right? Because we're all human. My closest friends and family know that they can cut up with me, and I'm just a regular old dude that just happens to have an occupation of running a business. But nonetheless, like I said, I believe that owning a business has become over-glorified and overrated. And I think it's because people only look at and show the highlight reels of what it's like owning a business, right? All of the minor possibilities that you can achieve if you do it right. Like if you place all the pieces of the puzzle together, then you might get the opportunity to have that freedom, like I said, or to make great living and have financial opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that's the first thing I would tell people. Overrated, overglorified. The second thing I would say is it's underappreciated. Business owners, whether it's a business of having 1 or 2 people on the team or 1 or 2,000 people on the team, no one truly knows what the business owner goes through on a day-to-day basis unless you've walked that business owner's shoes, right? And even if you are a business owner, I have a lot of friends who own businesses as well. We all walk different paths. We have different struggles, different challenges, different hurdles we have to overcome, but they're still all rooted in the same vein of business ownership, of leadership. Building an organization, building people, building opportunity, and doing something that you actually care about. If you tuned in last week when I did my podcast, one of the stories I was talking about was at a recent company meeting that I got to, that I hosted, I participated in with our company. And I got to tell people, we went around the circle asking what do you do here and why does it matter? And, and again, not to get the sympathy or the empathy or the attaboy or anything like that, but to reiterate it, the reason I was brought to tears in my gratitude for getting to do what I get to do on a daily basis is not because, like I said, I wasn't looking for the sympathy or the thank yous or the pats on the back. It's because I genuinely put everything I have into making this business to be able to provide as much opportunity for people as possible. Kind of going back to what I said about you have a lot of bosses that you answer to when you're a business owner. I have a lot of people that I'm trying to help make sure that we're at least giving an opportunity for them to build the lives they dream of. And that's in regard to the people who work in our business. And then the people who trust us with their projects, who agree to spend money with us and to put their trust and faith in that we're going to take care of them. We're going to be honest. We're going to be transparent, give them what we say we're going to give them when we say we're going to give it to them. Those people, I have to make sure we're putting everything into this business to meet their expectations, right? There are some business owners out there who kind of like the same, on the first topic I mentioned, they expect the business to serve them. But if they're doing it with the right motives and they're trying to provide value to their society, their economy, their community, their friends, their family, whatever it may be, if they're trying to genuinely provide value, they are putting everything they have on the line to hopefully make sure that the pieces all work together to create something to be proud of. And that's the thing that brought me to tears is I'm getting to live this opportunity to build something that matters, to build something that can leave a legacy, that can leave a story, and that can hopefully leave this place a little bit better than when I found it. And so when I say that business ownership is underrated, or I'm sorry, underappreciated, when I say that business ownership is underappreciated, I say that because most people don't realize everything that actually goes into it. They don't realize that you see on the pictures and the posters of, oh yeah, you're working 24/7, 360. I get all that, right? Every business owner has to go through that phase where you're just grinding nonstop. But then the next phase after that, they're trying to make sure that they're there to solve the problems and put out the fires for the people on their team or the clients that have trusted them with projects. And they're trying to make sure everything's running smoothly and people are supported and have the resources and the empowerment that they need to succeed in their roles. And then the next step beyond that is they're like having to make sure all the money makes sense, all the finances and the cash flow and this person, we need to hire them, but they need to get paid this, but they need it over here and they need this, whatever it is, right? I can go down a whole rabbit hole that you probably don't want to hear about. But nonetheless, my point in saying all this is that every stage of the business has levels that is required of the business owner that no one ever actually knows about. No one knows the emotional and the mental toll that it takes on a business owner to ensure that the team is set up for success and that the clients are set up for success. Because although the business owner may eventually not be the one answering every phone call, responding to every email, having every meeting, seeing every client, doing every project, delivering every service, whatever it might be, they are doing a handful of other things on a regular basis in the background to ensure that the company is set up for success. And one of those things requires the most amount of mental energy, but requires the least amount of physical energy. And that's making sure that the company has a vision and that vision is communicated regularly and clearly to everybody that's impacted by the business. Because if the business owner is constantly bombarded and bogged down by the day-to-day operations, the only thing that business owner is worried about is taking care of the day-to-day operations, checking off the boxes, completing the tasks, getting the things done just to get to the next day. But if you want to have a company and an organization that has a future and a hope for something bigger than where you're at now, that leader, that business owner, whoever's in charge of running it, has to have the time and the freedom and the space to be able to think about where the organization is going. And I don't think enough people understand how much of a toll that takes, because it's only the people who work in your company's lives that are at stake. It's only making sure that the people who've invested 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years into your company haven't all done it to just waste their time away, that they actually have a future and an opportunity to build something. And so having that time to think about and to detail out that vision of where that business is going is something that is extremely underrated and underappreciated. Because without it, every one of us would be working at a dead-end job with no opportunity for growth and advancement or to building a future that we desire. And so those are the two things that obviously you're now sitting here thinking like, okay, like then why does anybody own a business? Because the last point that I brought up is that I wouldn't trade it for anything. You see, I've had the opportunity to work at a handful of different companies and different industries or careers or whatever you want to call them over the years. But I would probably venture to say that the majority of my working years at this point in my life have been working for a company that I own and operate. And although I have appreciated and gained a lot of experience and respect for different occupations, whether it was when I was a fireman for 6 years, worked in the service industry waiting tables, worked for lawn care companies, just mowing grass, worked at marinas, worked at lumber yards, worked briefly at a fire alarm installation company. I've had these various jobs over the years. But one thing I'll tell you is there has yet to be anything that quite meets the level of being rewarding and satisfying and fulfilling as owning and running a business is. The closest thing would be being a fireman, right? Because ultimately your job is to help people. And I understand there's all the jokes out there about firemen that they just nap and play cards and hang out and do nothing except for occasionally get on a fire truck and go make a bunch of noise driving through town. But that's, at the end of the day, when you're there for somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning on the worst day of their life, that's pretty darn rewarding when you finish up with it. And so the next closest thing, like I said, that I can compare that is owning a business, because my job is to help create the future and the opportunity for all the people who trust me with their time, with their lives, with the most precious and valuable thing that they actually possess. And so the fact that these individuals that we have on our team now, the ones that we're going to be bringing on our team in the future, and the one that we've had on our team in the past, that at one point or another, they have, are, or will be entrusting me with their most valuable resource, their time. What more could a person want, right? What more? How much more fulfilling could that be to know that I have the opportunity to provide these individuals something that they will remember for the rest of their life? That will provide them the opportunities to create experiences and memories and just overall opportunities with their families, with their loved ones, with their friends, and that I get to be the one to help spearhead this for them. Because if people like myself didn't take these risks, didn't take on the burdens that I mentioned previously, and the fact that being a business owner is overrated and overglorified, that it's underappreciated, if we didn't take these things on, there would be no opportunities in careers, in industries, in different jobs around the world. Somebody had to take the chance. Somebody has to take the arrows. Somebody has to be the spearhead, the tip of it, to forge through the unknown and to hopefully be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that everyone else can achieve the dreams that they have in their life. And if all those things happen to work out, then that business owner will reap the rewards of a successful business. Because don't get it twisted, guys. Being a business owner has a lot of perks, has a lot of upsides, has a lot of benefits, like the fact that I can go get a haircut at 10 o'clock on a Friday. Okay. Like the fact that if I need to take off and go support a family member in the middle of the afternoon, I can do that. Like the fact that I get to treat our team and their families to quarterly outings and take everybody out and celebrate our, just our accomplishments as a team and let everyone know how appreciated they are, and show their spouses or their kids when they come on, when they come to these outings of, what kind of team that their mom or their dad or their husband or their wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever goes and spends all their time and effort at. Because that's something that I've built that I'm proud of. And so I wouldn't trade it for the world. And so, like I said, guys, this conversation today wasn't as much leadership related. It wasn't probably giving you a lot of tactics and strategies to be able to take back to your business or your team to help build you or build your organization. But hopefully it made you think. Hopefully it made you think, whether you're a person working in an organization or whether you're a person leading an organization. Hopefully it brings to light the things that maybe get overlooked, the things that maybe you don't give yourself enough credit for, or maybe the things that you need to start taking more seriously, right? Because as business owners, we'll be the first to complain about something. Can't believe that person called in sick. Can't believe that person said that on the phone. Can't believe that person did that on the job site. Can't believe this, can't believe that. But like I said, you wouldn't trade it for the world. And if you're working in an organization that has a leader that believes what I'm talking about right now, that they wouldn't trade it for the world, that they're in it for you, that they're wanting to make sure that you have the most opportunity possible in your career and in your life, if you're working for somebody like that, you might want to give them a little bit of credit. You might want to tell them thank you every now and then. You might want to put in the effort to help build this thing to make it worthwhile for everybody on board. And like I said, guys, as the disclaimer, this isn't a talk about wanting the thank yous or the pats on the back. So don't get it twisted. I don't need that from you. What I do need from you is the commitment to keep pushing and grinding to be the best version of yourself. Because if you don't win, who will lose because of it? Something to think about. Guys, as always, follow along on our social channels. They're always listed in my posts on here, down in the body of the post or wherever you find them. Check out our company's YouTube page. We are constantly posting updates on who we are as a team, what we do as a company, and to make sure that the person listening to this, that I'm not full of crap when I get on here and chat with you every week. So, guys, as always, I appreciate you. And that last final thought, if you don't win, who will lose because of it? Have a good one.